Perfect. Thank you very much, everyone. I hope everyone has settled down, found their seats, and helped themselves to the food at the back. So my name is Nicholas Amaya. I'll be helping to MC and keep the flow of things as we go today. We're all very excited, and we have an amazing set of panelists here next to me who can ultimately help you get a better understanding of how we can get ahead in this real estate market. So to get right into it, I'll briefly introduce all of our speakers. To my right, we have Brenda Guardado, who is the owner of BGM Legal Services and has been a licensed paralegal at the Law Society of Ontario since 2011. Brenda has been exclusively representing landlords for the past 12 years, and her experience includes tenancy screenings, drafting lease agreements, conducting tenancy termination negotiations, preparing tribunal forms applications, and hearing representations at the Landlord and Tenancy Board.
Okay, good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming and taking the time to be here. And I also want to express my gratitude to Humberto and Eduardo for inviting me. I wouldn't be a legal representative if I don't start my presentation with a legal disclaimer. This is not to be constituted a legal advice, but rather general information. If you want a more in-depth conversation about a specific case, you're welcome to call me. Well, first of all, I congratulate you for taking the time to be here. I noticed that nowadays most people take more time to read reviews about what kind of cars they're going to take, to what does it take to be a landlord and put a tenant in your $1 million house. So do me a favor, before you become a landlord, or if you're a landlord now, take the time to talk to somebody that knows, so that you can actually be more versed about what you're about to get into. I know that there's a lot of tenants that are very knowledgeable, so it's only fair that landlords should be the same or even more knowledgeable. So how to maximize your rental investment. I want you to identify the property that you're going to own to match your needs. Are you going to be the landlord that's going to be renting rooms and you're going to be sharing the rooms with them? Are you going to be a landlord that is going to perhaps rent your basement? Or are you going to rent an apartment or a house? Are you going to divide it into 2 or 3 different units? I did a bit of research in the Kitchener area, and rooms nowadays are renting from $700 to $1,200. That depends whether you offer parking, an en-suite bathroom. You got to think about the pros and cons. Privacy, if you're renting the space with them, it's a little bit more higher needs because you become the parents of 4 little children, right? And they all want to share the kitchen, and whose turn, right? The downside is that you tend to have less stable tenants because, it's a revolving door, they come and go. Now, basements, they're ranging from $1,350 to $2,150. Location makes a big difference, whether it's modern, spacious, private. The pros is that it has some privacy, especially if they have separate entrances. When you're renting a basement, please think about the importance of a well-written lease. I go to the landlord and tenant board all the time because people didn't specify who's going to be using the backyard or the distribution of the garbage, the parking spaces. So basements are very important to set out more specific details. Now, apartments, they're ranging from $2,250 to $2,700. Location, space makes a difference. The pros is that it's a bit less hands-on because you have the property, the management of the building looking after the place, right? The cons is actually that the management is going to be on you. So if your tenant is doing things that they're not in compliance with the rules, they're not shy to put even a lien on your property. So, you got to think about whether you're comfortable with that. Now, if you're going to have a house divided in this area, it's going for about $2,150 to $3,200. Now, I want you to also think the history of the rental property. It's good that you have realtors that know what an investment property is, like Eduardo and Humberto. you should inquire about the basement, for example. Is the basement registered? By the way, they're not called legal and illegal basements anymore. The government wants people to register the basements so that there's more housing now. Or you can find out whether the basement is not retroactive, and what does it take in your city to make it register. Now, I also want you to think about the location and the condition to address to match your expected ideal tenants. Please don't be afraid to invest extra money in your rental property. Tenants also want to live well. They like stainless steel appliances. They're willing to pay extra for the granite countertops. So I often find landlords that tell me, look, this is what I have for my tenant. And they want the property to be given back in a better shape that they're actually given it. So make sure that you're fair. Now, I also noticed one thing that's happening nowadays with my landlords. So imagine you live in Kitchener and you bought a rental property in Innisfil, and all of a sudden there's a flood. How are you going to get to that property when there is an emergency? So think about those factors. Do you have somebody that can quickly get there? So make sure that the location is not only about the pricing, but also about your accessibility to that property. Now, I also want you to think whether you want to be subject to the rent control. Rent control applies to all the properties that were built before November 15, 2018. So older homes, you're stuck with the rent control. To give you an idea, next year, it's going to be 2.5% what you can increase in rent. That's nothing. Now, if you have a property, even a basement that was meant to be first occupied after November 15, 2018, you can increase to whatever amount you actually like. Now, the applicable laws. We have Human Rights Code, Residential Tenancies Act, better known as the RTA, Rental Fairness Act 2017. I want you to be very mindful of the Human Rights Code when you're advertising and screening tenants. I often find landlords being very outspoken when they place ads, marketplace. I prefer specific background. I prefer no kids. You gotta be careful, okay? Remember that we live in a place where inclusion is actually welcome, and everybody deserves a fair opportunity, even newcomers. So now I also want you to know that the Rental Fairness Act, so the cap to the rent increase only applies to tenants that are in possession of your property. So if the tenant left and you want to actually re-rent the property, you're not subject to that. You can actually increase it to the market, the going rate for that property. Now, tenant selection, please do check references. Ask details. Ask, for example, do they own pets, right? They probably told you they don't, but you can still ask the landlord if they have pets. And credit history. Learn how to read those reports. Please check the details. Don't accept just the first pages. Accept only the entire report, okay? It gives you a lot of details. See if it matches the information that you were provided by the applicants. Now, the renter history, you can check whatever is available online. Nowadays, we like to share a lot of information about ourselves, so use it in your benefit. I always like to ask for 2 landlords' references, the 2 prior landlords' references. And I don't personally accept just letters. I always like to call and ask even uncomfortable questions. Are they breaking the lease? Are you paying them out to move out? Now, lease agreements. So there's a difference between the tenancy agreement under the RTA and occupancy rights. So if your parents, your spouse, or your children use the same kitchen or bathroom with a tenant, they're occupants. They're not tenants. So please don't misguide tenants by giving them a standard lease agreement if they're actually occupying the premises. Now, there's the pet section 14 of the RTA. Any clauses that prohibit pets are actually void. So pets are considered just another occupant. Now, key clauses, I want you to think about the hot water tank rental. That's a big deal. Share of utilities, restrictions of space usage. Think about the mail, garbage, driveway, garage. Now, there's the standard lease agreement. It's very, the word says it, very standard, but you should add schedule with all the details that you want. The onus is on the person drafting the lease to be as explicit as possible. Now, there's specific forms and timelines that you have to obey. There's health and safety despite arrears. You have 24-hour requirements. The sheriff is the only person that it can actually evict. And now reasons to end the tenancy. So you can end the tenancy anytime within the lease for arrears, illegal act, abuse of landlord's rights and interest, end of a contract, constant late rent payments, personal unused history. At the end of the lease is not a ticking bomb. So just because the lease expires, the tenant has to be out. No, they have the right to remain on a month-to-month basis. I want quickly talk about something. Just because you have the intention to sell doesn't mean that the tenant has to move out. No, the tenant has the right to remain. They have to help you with the showings. And only when the buyer is willing to give you an affidavit saying, I want it for my personal use, then you can actually serve a proper notice to give them 60 days notice, and still the tenant can stay, and you will have to file at the landlord and tenant board. So please do make sure that you have a realtor and a legal representative that can help you get the vacant possession for your clients. Sorry, too little time.